The first time I ever called 911, I was 18 years old. It started as an average Tuesday. Sunny day, busy streets. The sweet smell of spring in the air. A beautiful day. But what happened later turned it to a nightmare and left me with the mental scars that sometimes wake me up at night, sweating and panting. I was home alone. My parents had gone on a business trip and wouldn't be back until the next day. I was pretty excited to have the house all to myself, but not for the reasons you might think. Other kids my age would probably throw a house party or invite a boy over, but not me. I liked the peace and quiet, the feeling of being alone with my thoughts for just a bit. It was nothing against my parents. They were wonderful. So I spent the morning just chilling, watching Netflix. Around tea time, I went to the Starbucks nearby to grab a coffee and some cookies. It wasn't far, so I walked there, even though I could have taken my mom's car. I was almost home when I started to get an odd feeling, a prickling sensation right between my shoulder blades, like someone was watching me. I turned around, but no one was there. Just an empty street, silent and still. I felt a chill creep up my spine and started walking faster. By the time I got home, I was laughing at myself for being so paranoid. It was dumb, really. Sure, I lived in a secluded neighborhood where the next neighbor was half a kilometer away, but it was safe. Towards sunset, I decided to get some apples from the orchard on our property. I had just picked a few when I heard a voice from the shadows under the peach trees. "Could I have an apple?" I let out a little scream and jumped back. It was a woman. A dirty, bed-ragged woman with bloodshot eyes and yellow teeth. She looked homeless. What are you doing here?" I stammered. "Oh, I just got lost. Then I saw this beautiful orchard from the road and just had to pop in." "I make a mean apple pie," she drawled, smiling creepily, her yellow teeth on full display. She was moving towards me. Instinctively, I backed away. That's when I realized she towered over me. I'm 5'0", and this woman was at least 6'5". "I think I should go," my voice tight with fear. "Just one apple, little girl. Surely I can have that," she leered. I didn't respond. My mind was racing in every direction. There was something in her eyes, something unhinged, that filled me with terror. She kept advancing, and I kept backing away. The red glow of the sunset outlined her tall frame as she drew closer, her eyes bulging unnaturally. Then out of nowhere, I threw my arms up, and she flinched. Taking my chance, I pivoted on my heel and bolted towards the house. I heard her behind me, her voice echoing, "Don't run from me!" I reached the house with just a second to spare, slamming the door shut. A loud impact followed as her body crashed against the wood. "Let me in, you bitch!" she growled. My hands shook as I fumbled for my phone. Backing away from the door, I dialed 911. 911, what's your emergency?" came a calm voice. "There's a woman here. Please, please," I stammered. "Can you tell me your name and what's going on?" the operator asked. I took a shaky breath. "Allison? My name is Allison. There's a woman outside my house. I think she's crazy. I think she wants to hurt me. Please help." "Okay, Allison, where are you?" the operator asked softly, trying to keep me calm. 865 Regent Road?" I whispered, shaking uncontrollably. "Okay, we have a unit close by. They'll be there in 8 minutes, he assured me. "Please, hurry," I began, but my voice froze as I heard the unmistakable crack of something striking the door. I moved to the window. She was in front of the door with an axe, probably taken from our shed. "Let me in," she roared, each word punctuated by the axe hitting the door. I watched in horror as the wood began to splinter. "Allison, can you tell me what's happening?" the operator asked, his voice now just a distant hum. All I could focus on was the sound of the axe. The door was breaking. I knew it wouldn't hold. "Oh my God, she's going to get in. I'm going to die," I whispered, curling into a ball, frozen with fear. Time blurred as I lay there, the cold floor pressing against my body. The splintering wood echoed in my head, drowning out everything. The door finally gave way. I felt hands on me, but I couldn't bring myself to open my eyes. I was too terrified. It felt like there was more than a pair of hands, like it was a crowd around me. I kicked and screamed, thinking she'd broken through. I fought with everything I had, but then I heard calm voices around me. Forcing my eyes open, I realized it was the police. They had gotten through just in time. Looking back, I know how close I came to being hurt that night. The police arrived as promised, but they found no signs of the woman. They had to break down the door to reach me. I hadn't realized that, in my terror, I'd stopped responding to their calls. That night, what started as an average Tuesday left a scar I won't ever forget. "Bill keeps saying I should go in there and kill them," came the voice, low and unsettling, like a whisper barely meant to be heard. "911, what's your emergency?" I said, thinking I must have misheard. The line had cracked to life with an eerie quality that made me sit up a little straighter. "Bill?" the voice enunciated slowly, like a single word lingering on the tongue. "Bill said I should kill them." "Sir, what's your name? Can you tell me exactly what's happening? Who is Bill?" The voice on the other end of the line felt off, too calm. But I've been doing this for long enough to not jump to conclusions. Calls like this came in every now and then. 9 times out of 10, it was just some drunk with too much time on his hands. "Bill says I have to do it," the man continued, his tone sounding detached, as though he were reciting a line from memory. "Sir, I'm going to need you to tell me your name. Where are you right now?" I asked, leaning in slightly, my fingers poised over the keyboard. Silence, just the steady sound of his breathing. Then, after a pause that stretched a little too long, he spoke again. "I don't want to go in there, but Bill says I have to." I leaned back in my chair, picturing the caller in my head. I learned to paint a mental image over the years. A faceless guy crouching in the shadows, maybe with a bottle in one hand, his cell phone pressed to his ear. "All right, let's take it easy, okay? Bill can wait. Why don't you tell me where you are right now?" I'm in the bushes in front of their house, 22 Pringle Lane," he whispered, barely concealing the tremors in his voice. "Bill told me to bring my gun. I'm waiting until they turn off the lights, but Bill keeps saying I have to go in now." A chill crept down my spine. My fingers hovered over the buttons to dispatch units immediately. This wasn't the same as someone calling from their home in a moment of anger or confusion. This guy was outside, crouching in the bushes of someone else's home, possibly armed. The tension shifted. It was no longer a routine call. "Listen," I said, my tone firm but calm. "You don't have to do anything Bill says. You're in control here, okay? Just put down the gun and take a deep breath." Suddenly, I heard barking in the background, sharp and insistent. The sound startled me, jarring against the eerie calm of his voice. It was close, maybe even right next to him. "Are you being attacked by an animal? Is there a dog near you?" I asked, hoping to ground him in something, anything, that could keep him talking. He was quiet for a moment before his voice came back, low and contemplative. "The dog. No, that's just Bill asking why I haven't gone in yet. He's not happy." I froze, the pieces falling into place with a sickening dread. "Excuse me?" He let out a shaky breath, one that sounded more resigned than fearful. "Bill speaks through the dog. He tells me what I have to do." The words hung in the air, thick and heavy. This man wasn't just drinking. He was unhinged. This was the kind of caller I always dreaded. The ones who could become completely lost in their own delusions, willing to take orders from voices only they could hear. In my years on the job, I'd seen plenty of twisted situations, but there's something more terrifying about a person who believes with absolute certainty that something or someone is controlling them. I had already dispatched a unit, but I knew the chances they make it in time were slim. My heart pounded as I struggled to keep my voice calm, even soothing. "You don't have to listen to Bill. You can just walk away." Silence again, then barking started up, louder this time, as if urging him forward. Each bark felt like a ticking clock, counting down to something terrible. "Sir, are you still there?" I asked, trying to keep him with me, trying to break through whatever part of him was still grounded to reality. "Bill's angry," he muttered. His voice was quivering now, frantic and strained. "He says I'm taking too long. Says I'll never be free if I don't do this." My mouth went dry. "You don't have to do anything. Do you hear me? Just take a breath, put the gun down, and walk away. You can be free. You don't need Bill's permission." There was a moment of quiet. The dog's barking continued in the background, relentless. I imagined him there, crouching in those bushes, face twisted with conflict, his grip tightening around the gun as he wrestled with the voices in his mind. "Sir, sir," I shouted into the phone, desperate to reach him. "Please talk to me. You're not alone in this. We can work through this together, okay?" But my voice might as well have been a whisper in the wind. The only response was silence, followed by a brief, muffled shuffling sound. Then, all at once, the silence was shattered by gunfire. 2, 3 shots in rapid succession, echoing in the background like thunder. I heard a scream, blood-curdling and primal, that cut off as suddenly as it had begun. The line went dead. I sat there, hands still gripping the receiver. The silence that followed was almost deafening. My heart hammered in my chest, a sickening throb that pulsed through me as I tried to process what had just happened. By the time the police unit arrived, it was too late. They found an elderly couple inside, both dead from gunshot wounds. The man, who we later learned was named Ted, a local drifter with a troubled history, had been captured without a struggle. When questioned, he insisted he wasn't responsible, that Bill made him do it. As for the dog, the supposed voice of Bill, there was no trace. No one in the neighborhood had reported seeing any stray dog, and nothing turned up in the investigation. Whether the dog had ever existed, or if it was simply a manifestation of his fractured mind, no one could say for sure. My shift was almost over when the call came in. The clock on my monitor read 11:47 p.m., and I already had started my end-of-shift routine, organizing reports from what had been a relatively quiet Tuesday night. The line cracked with static, and I could hear panicked breathing on the other end, a sound that made me sit up straighter in my chair. After 6 years as a dispatcher, you develop a sixth sense for these things. The difference between a routine emergency and something worse. I took a deep breath and adjusted my headset. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead in our nearly empty call center, most of the other dispatchers having already cleared out for the night shift change. 911, what's your emergency? The words rolled off my tongue with practiced ease, though something about this call made my skin crawl. At first, there was nothing but a shaky breath, the kind that makes your own chest tighten in response. Then came a whisper, almost too soft to catch, like autumn leaves scraping against pavement. There's someone outside my house. I've heard him for days now. He's watching me. I'm so scared. My hand tightened on my mouse as I opened a new incident report. Calls like these were always tense, but something about this one felt different. A low-level hum of unease I couldn't shake. Maybe it was the raw terror in her voice, or maybe it was the way the static on the line seemed to pulse like a heartbeat. Can you tell me your name? I kept my voice steady, professional, though my own pulse had quickened. It's Charlotte. Her voice cracked on the second syllable. Okay, Charlotte. Where are you right now? My fingers hovered over the keyboard, ready to input her location. The call center felt suddenly colder, though I knew the temperature hadn't changed. I started picturing her in my mind's eye. At home? She whispered. I'm in the closet. I don't want him to see me. I could hear hangers softly clicking in the background, imaging her trying to make herself smaller behind hanging clothes. Good. Stay hidden and quiet. Don't hang up. I'm sending officers to your location. They'll be there soon. Quickly, I entered her address, 1247 Maple Grove Road, relaying it to dispatch. Officer Menendez and his partner were closest, about 8 minutes out. Stay on the line, Charlotte. I'm right here with you, I said, trying to keep her calm as I listened to her shallow breaths. It started last week, she said, her voice wavering like a candle flame in the wind. I heard footsteps outside my window, then scratches on the wall. I thought it was just an animal at first, but then I saw him. Just a shadow lurking. Notes the clicking of keys seeming too loud in a quiet room. Do you see him now? No, but I know he's out there, she breathed. Yesterday, I found my back door unlocked. I never leave it unlocked. Never. And last night I heard him outside my bedroom window. He was humming something. An old lullaby, I think. A new kind of terror settled into my stomach, cold and heavy as stone. I'd heard hundreds of scary stories over the line, but this one was getting under my skin. Her fear was real, palpable. It reached through the phone line and wrapped its cold fingers around my throat like a lifeless hand. Charlotte, you're doing great. Just keep quiet and stay on the line. I checked the dispatch screen, 6 minutes out. Too long. There was a faint creak on her end, and she whispered, a sound so small it might have come from a child. He's coming, she whispered, her voice tight with terror. He's trying the front door. I can hear the handle turning. The sound of her rapid, shallow breathing filled my headset. I kept my own voice calm, controlled, though my hands were shaking. Stay as quiet as you can. Help is almost there. The unit was just 4 minutes away now. The seconds ticked by, dragging out painfully as we waited. In the background, I heard more creaking, a faint scraping noise, and then Silence. The kind of silence that fills your ears like cotton wool, that makes your heart stutter in your chest. "Charlotte?" I said softly. "Are you still there?" Her voice broke. "He's in the house. He's in here. I can smell him. The same horrible stench that was on my pillowcase this morning." My heart raced. I wanted to say something, anything, to keep her calm. But before I could, I heard her scream. A shrill, unnerving sound that quickly rose in tempo and cut off abruptly. The line stayed connected, dead quiet except for the soft static. I waited, hoping, my throat tight with unspoken words. It was only minutes later that Officers Menendez and Reynolds arrived. But by then, there was no sign of her. Her phone lay on the closet floor, still connected to our call. The room was in shambles, her belongings scattered like fallen leaves, but she was gone. Just gone. As I ended the call, that silence followed me home. A cold emptiness that settled in deep. Even now, months later, I still think about Charlotte. But that final scream, sometimes on quiet nights, when I'm alone in the call center, I swear I can still hear it echoing in my headset, along with the sounds of something scratching at the walls.